it keeps like adjusting to the light, and so like really bothering me. And I noticed it. Whatever. We're gonna have like background flickering, and it's not like we're, we're professionals anyway.
Right.
Right.
As long as it looks like good enough. Like I'm
It's
it's
so
generally
much
fine.
better than most people's podcasts anyway. So
Yeah.
welcome back to another episode of the Lasercomb Podcast, your favorite podcast where we comb through random episodes of classic TV shows with a fine-tooth laser. I'm one of your hosts, NeoCal.
And I'm the other host, Christopher Siege.
Siege!
Yes.
We've done 18.
Yes,
18
this is
episodes.
episode 18 of the Lasercomb Podcast. And at the time of recording, we are recording in the beginning of January 2022. And this we have declared Patreon month. So every episode of the Lasercomb Podcast this month is going to be determined by our Patreon sponsors at patreon.com/lasercomb, LAZORCOMB, where at the $10 and up tier, you get to pick a show for us to review a random episode of. And this week on the Lasercomb Podcast, one of our longtime Patreon supporters and one of our longtime supporters in general, even before the Patreon days, Lewis. Lewis pitched us X-Files. He pitched us a whole bunch of things, and he was like, well, you choose amongst all of them. And X-Files is what he gave me about a half dozen choices, and X-Files is the one that I went with because it was, out of all of them, it was the one that had the most episodes. So I thought we could end up with like the most random number possible. And indeed we did. We ended up with episode 137 of the X-Files, which is the season 6 20th episode of season 6, called Three of a Kind. I have a little bit of a some shenanigans that ensued with me when I was watching this the other day.
Uh-oh.
So I brought up Disney Plus because in Canada anyway, all of the X-Files is on Disney Plus under their like Star branding, which is kind of the Canadian version of Hulu, but you know, whatever, because we don't have Hulu up here. But anyway, so I clicked on I clicked on X-Files in Disney Plus and went to season 6, episode 20, Three of a Kind. Didn't bother reading the synopsis, and I clicked on it, and what I ended up getting was actually a very sweet and lovely episode that was kind of a flashback to 1940s Roswell, New Mexico, about a white cop befriending a black baseball player because he had some kind of hit out on him by the Ku Klux Klan, but it turned out he was actually an alien. Really, really good episode. Really
That
enjoyed it.
sounds like a great episode.
No, it was great. And the episode was actually written and directed by David Duchovny. Great episode.
I didn't even know.
After I finished watching it, I was like, wow. And for listeners, me, like I myself am a person who really enjoys baseball. I have since I was a child. I don't follow like MLB or anything at this point in my life, but I really enjoy the game of baseball. So it hit home for me. No pun intended. But after the episode ended, I started paying attention to the screen on my TV from Disney Plus, and it said season 6, episode 20, Three of a Kind, and the synopsis read, "The lone gunmen infiltrate a Vegas casino." And I'm like, what the fuck? That is not the episode that I just watched. Did I fuck up? Like, did I go full rotundo and like click on the wrong episode? So I clicked on it again, and listeners, I even took a video of me doing this and sent it to my esteemed co-host NeoCal, and was like, look what happens when I click on this episode. It's supposed to be the lone gunman in Vegas episode, but what happens when I click on it? The fucking baseball episode. Like, I don't know what's going on.
So what had happened is those two episodes, the videos were uploaded. They were switched.
Yeah. So the episode titles and synopses were correct, but when you click on them, episodes 19 and 20, the actual like video files were reversed somehow.
Thumbnail, the synopsis, everything else is right. It's just the video.
Yeah. So Cal is like, what happens when you try the episode before it? And I'm like, let's find out.
And the right episode played.
And so I started watching it. I sent Cal like a screenshot and he was like, oh, that's the right one. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Well, you got to watch 2 episodes of the X-Files.
So I got to watch I got to watch 2 episodes of X-Files from season 6, and you know what? They're both pretty good.
Yeah. From you ranting about the other one right now, I'm probably going to go and watch the other one.
No, highly recommended. Very, very good episode. It's also extremely standalone too. Unlike like this one.
Yeah.
Well, this one is kind of standalone, but this one kind of requires you to have a little bit of past knowledge about something that happened at some point in the series.
Right.
But there is a pretty good recap at the beginning of this episode. Yeah, that kind of fills in the blanks. So so we're gonna kind of like gloss over the episode a little bit. Like we're gonna kind of yada yada and just hit like the main bullet points.
Yeah. Well, the premise of this is that this is a lone gunman episode.
I actually, before we get into that, Cal, tell me and tell the listeners, what is the X-Files about? Just in broad strokes.
Is about a branch of the FBI that a character we meet named David Duchovny, Agent Mulder, Fox Mulder, is kind of like one-man armying himself, and it's to look into unexplained or paranormal occurrences.
Right.
He gives off the vibe of a conspiracy theorist, but still grounded somewhat in science. He's not wearing tinfoil hats. He's not like holding signs out in the street, right? He's an FBI agent, and he is teamed with Agent Scully, and she is the opposite. And so the very first few episodes, you get this trope, right? Where he's like, but what if, Scully? And she's like, that's illogical. I only believe in science. There's no such thing as ghosts or UFOs. And that's how they balance each other out. One wants to believe, and the other one is the extreme skeptic. And you can't always even believe your own eyes.
Yeah.
And they go forward, and there's a greater plot like moving on in the background, but there's also a lot of standalone episodes like this one with recurring side characters or monster of the week type episodes.
Right. And I had actually kind of forgotten until I started watching this episode the other day that Dana Scully is actually a doctor.
Right, because even in this episode, she does the autopsy. She's a doctor.
She does an autopsy. And at first I was like, wait, why are you asking just a like FBI chick to do an autopsy? And then I'm like, right, she's a doctor. Like, actually.
I forgot too, yeah. So I'm wondering what she did to get to get posted with this guy.
Right? Yeah, so he's so Agent Mulder is kind of wackadoo, and Agent Scully kind of has her feet on the ground a little bit more.
And they balance each other out, because he immediately jumps to the, but what if astral projection, aliens, brainwashing. And that can be bad, but where Agent Scully is bad is overly pessimistic of anything that could be fantastical, to the point of impeding common sense almost.
Right.
Both of them have that. So they're that yin yang of extremes, which is just a joy.
Yeah. So Fox Mulder kind of, he's a little too willing to be like, oh,
To jump in the deep end.
it's probably aliens.
I'm not saying it's aliens.
and Agent Scully is a little too like, no, that's impossible. Right.
Yeah, she could be abducted by aliens and she would find like 13 reasons why it was actually like swamp gas, like, and a full moon with like solar flares
and weather balloons
and weather balloons. Yeah. Which is the point of the show, right? The theme is like what happened at Roswell.
Right.
Speaking of weather balloons, yeah.
Yeah, Roswell, 1947. Very infamous event that occurred. What's NeoCal? What is your take on the whole Roswell 47 thing? Do you think it's aliens?
I think it's aliens.
Let's tell the listeners now.
Okay, so it's aliens because they had released pictures. They had interviews with people. People had seen the wreckage. Apparently, people had seen the bodies of like whatever craft this was. And then days later, they completely like 180'd. They were like, no, it was a weather balloon.
And then they set up Area 51.
Pictures. Here's different pictures.
Yeah.
Right. The completely different pictures of the wreckage that they first released, already released in the newspapers. And now they're saying that didn't happen. Different reporters reporting something else entirely, just footage of like people holding up like that silverish, like weather balloon kind of like stuff. And it was so wildly different than the initial coverage that like something was conspiracy started being a term that like arrived.
Right.
And that's the whole like, oh, Area 51 is their secret Air Force base. And they got aliens in the sub levels like down below, and or at least the wreckage therein. And it wouldn't have been sensationalized so much if their statements, the pictures they released, and everything was completely wildly different. For the government to be like, unknown craft, here's some pictures. That's whack. To a few days later being like, oh, no, none of that happened. It was a weather balloon, is super sus.
Agreed. Yeah.
And that being said, with science, sometimes people jump the gun and they go, hey, look, we found, like Tabby's star. There's signs of a Dyson sphere around, like a Dyson swarm going around the planet. And then other people look into it and they're like, oh, maybe it's like a meteor like debris field.
Right? I literally only know what a Dyson sphere is because there was an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation that involved one. And it turned out Scotty from the original series, Old Man Scotty, was trapped inside it.
Huh.
Yeah. It's actually a pretty good episode. Seeing Scotty walking around like the Enterprise D.
Yeah,
trying to make sense of it was very much kind of a like in a way like kind of a fish out of water story, like an old man like trying to make sense of like the modern world and not doing a very good job at it. But then also like figuring out how he can still be useful. Yeah, it was one of those kind of stories.
So what about you with Roswell?
I'm not saying it was aliens. But it was fucking aliens.
Yeah.
Aliens crashed. Government covered it up. They set up Area 51, which, like, if you look at, like, Google, like, satellite, like, imagery and whatnot, like, Area 51 looks like nothing, basically. But there is a big-ass perimeter around Area 51 where there are signs posted that, like, saying, like, if you trespass, you will be shot by a sniper.
You'll be shot dead. This is an enclosed government testing facility.
Yeah. Seemingly there is nothing going on there, but like you can only go up to a certain point, and if you cross it, they will shoot you.
Well, they say it's a government testing facility. It's just that there are a few. Some conspiracy conspiracy theorists. Some people are like, oh, well, that's just a normal like air like testing facility area. I can't remember what it is, but like 47, it like, you know, 87 miles east, that's the real Area 51, and that's the one with aliens and all that stuff. Before we move on, one thing I want to mention, my friend's theory. Apparently, this is true. I've done some Googling, but who knows nowadays? The term conspiracy theory and having it synonymous with crazy person that believes anything is in itself a conspiracy theory by the government. By the government releasing things in the newspaper saying conspiracy theory, conspiracy theory.
So propaganda, basically.
Propaganda. So conspiracy theory being associated with like crazy people was the government like instilling a term to discredit people that had those theories.
And I mean, nowadays you just have like QAnon doing the work for free.
Doing the work for free, suckers. Right? But I just think it's funny that
just making like conspiracy theorist people look like fucking whack jobs,
even when the ones that are right, yeah. And well, kind of, yeah, get the people to police themselves, right? So I just think it's funny that conspiracy theory was a government, and coining the term was a government conspiracy in of itself. That's my favorite government conspiracy.
I've never actually heard that one, but it makes a lot of sense. I'm on board with that. I'm also on board with the U.S. government reverse engineering and not just the U.S. government, really, because I'm sure alien spacecrafts have crashed all over the Earth, particularly in Russia and China, like big nation, like superpower nations like that. And we've just been like slowly reverse engineering technology from
Explain
like the wreckage.
Smartphones, dog.
Exactly.
They came out of nowhere.
Reverse engineering technology, like doing our best to like try and understand like medical science and whatnot. Like all of that took a big leap in the past like 70 years. So
yeah, mankind was trash before then.
Yeah, they're like human beings were just a bunch of fucking scrubs.
Rocket science, man. Apparently, rocket science is because of aliens.
Yeah,
the Germans.
Werner von Braun. Yep.
Yeah,
the guy who invented the guy who invented the V2 rocket. I know that because I watched that episode of Ancient Aliens.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Rockets, man. How do you explain it?
That's where we get the truth. God damn it.
Yeah. Ancient Aliens.
Anyway, so we're talking about episode 137 of The X-Files, 3 of a Kind. It originally aired on May 2nd, 1999. It was co-written by Vince Gilligan, who would later go on to become the creator of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Both, you know what? I can kind of see
the remnants. I can see it in this. Honestly, like he didn't direct it, but like I'm actually gonna look up the guy who directed this episode because like even the way the episode is shot like feels kind of reminiscent of a like the framing of the shots feels kind of reminiscent of Breaking Bad to me.
Oh yeah, I can see that. You can definitely see that. So while Christopher's looking that up,
doing some legitimate journalism,
the conspiracy theory thing that we ranted about for a while is kind of on point because this is a Lone Gunman episode, which are 3 pretty interesting reoccurring characters. They are conspiracy theorists trying to take down the corrupt government, but not like QAnon and like horse medicine stops COVID kind of like activists. They're like hacktivists of go ahead.
He directed Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, in 1995.
This guy?
Brian Spicer, the guy who directed this episode. He directed a bunch of episodes of Erie, Indiana, The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., Sequest. directed the movie Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie.
Everybody remembers that.
What else? CSI. 12 episodes of 24, which I'm a big fan of. Prison Break. Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles. The V remake TV series from 2010.
I remember
that. 13 episodes of Castle.
Okay, he's got a huge.
Yeah, he's didn't direct any of Breaking Bad, but he's got a pretty prolific television directorial career under his belt.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Shout out to that guy.
So the gist of this is the lone gunmen are three dudes. One's an older dude who's kind of about like, spying, like pretending, having different roles. He dresses up a lot, pretends to be a janitor, right? Pretends to be a bartender. Like he's an old spy.
You could tell this guy like really liked the original Mission Impossible TV show.
Really liked when Mission he was Impossible, younger. Really like James Bond. Right? Yeah. And then we get like a bespectacled, like blonde, long-haired, kind of like hacker dork who's a little bit like more extreme man, and he's about taking down the man. And
yeah, he's like the hacker dude who watched Wayne's World and thought that
Garth looked rad.
That Garth was really rad.
He's going for like a Garth hacker vibe. Garth hacker. Yeah.
Garth hacker.
Garth hacker. No, I'm like your father, man. And the third guy is the straight man. He's the guy that has been burned by the government directly, knows that they're corrupt, knows that they're covering things up, knows that they're brainwashing people. He is always in a suit, tie, and balances these other two out. One of them wants to be a spy, one of them wants to be the ultimate hacker, and this guy is like their operative.
This guy actually like wants to get shit done. And so the episode opens with like a flashback being like previously on blah blah, and we flash back to like some time ago, and the aforementioned like kind of straight-laced dude is he's having a vision quest of sorts where he's like has like a wife and family and everything's very happy, but then it turns out it's just a dream. And then we cut to him in Vegas. He's at a like high stakes poker game. It's at this Vegas convention for like defense contractors called DEF CON, which I found kind of funny.
Right? Come on. They had fun.
Yeah. DEF CON.
Yeah. John Fitzgerald Byers, Melvin, what is that? Froik? And Richard Langley are the three. The lone gunmen.
The just gonna say it like the good-looking dude out of all of them.
The straight man, the suit guy. The suit.
Yeah, the good-looking guy out of all of them is at this like high stakes poker game at DEF CON, and he's like playing a game of like Texas Hold'em, betting away. He has one hacker man in his ear via like earpiece, feeding him information. The one guy, like the lead guy at the table, is immediately kind of sus, and he's like challenging him on the information that he's giving. He's being like, oh hey, so you say you're this with this company, how did you fix the you did a really good job making that blah blah. And hack Garth
uses his like superpowers.
Garth Hacker
will be all like, I'm on it. That company they make air conditioners for like bomber units, B-52s.
Yeah, which is a weirdly specific thing.
Yeah, but that's the company that you'd think they'd research their own role before
You'd think, yeah.
coming in here. But the older guy, he's pretending to be a bartender and he's looking over the other people's shoulders and giving clear, like these guys are not Ocean's 11. Clear signs, right? Like he goes and
Right.
like to let his buddy know to fold. And it's like, oh man, you guys are bad at this. You guys suck.
And they do kind of, because like the main dude at the table is like, oh yeah, how did you fix the problem with the blah
How'd you
blah?
fix the problem with the delamination? Oh, and they're like, oh, you got to fold, dude, because the hacker guy's looking at the odds of him winning.
Right.
And so he's like, one, you got to fold, you're in too deep. And like, two, I'm not finding anything on delamination. You got to make something up. So instead of doing the logical thing and going, what do you mean about delamination? He makes up something about, we outsourced it to the Japanese and, like charged them 3 times as much as we would have paid in-house, blah, blah, blah,
We outsourced them to the Japanese and we triple billed the US government for it or something like that.
That's exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And then very quickly, he loses the hand in poker. So they lose like what, $3,000, something like that?
$3,000, yeah. And
then they're immediately caught. He's like, I made that up, you fool.
Yeah.
They're kicked out.
You should get good.
Yeah. And they kind of retreat back to their hotel room with their tail between their legs.
Right.
And it's like, none of you were good in this situation, except maybe Hacker Man. Garth Hacker.
And it sucks because like the way the episode opened, and especially me like going into this, like I've watched the X-Files before. Yeah. I haven't watched the X-Files in many, many years.
Same.
I also did not follow the X-Files, so I just caught like a random episode here and there.
Yeah, same.
So going into this episode, I was actually kind of rooting for them.
Yeah, right? But it's also, I feel like it's more human.
Yeah, I feel like
they can fail that hard.
Yeah. Yeah, so like the gist of the rest of the episode is like
Susan Medeski.
Yeah, Susan Medeski. So main God. What is his name? Like the good looking of the three? Byers.
Yeah.
Okay, so Byers is doing this because, and they have like a little bit of a disagreement because Byers is looking for this woman named Susan Medeski who went missing like 10 years ago. And they're like, well, we keep coming to all of these conventions and she's never there. She's never here. So like, what are we doing?
He's hoping, the reason he's hoping to find Susan Medeski is because the last time, one, he was close with her. But 2, she was pulled into a van and disappeared.
Right. Yeah.
And wouldn't you know it? His hunch has been right. After 10 years of coming to this stupid con, and they try to pay the bills by like being hacktivists, right? Infiltrating, getting information to expose government, to expose corrupt parts of the government, right?
Right.
But it's really like Siege just said, it's really so that maybe he can get a glimpse or find some information about Susan Medeski. And once you know it, he just sees her walking around. She's just walking about.
They quickly get interrupted by whatever they're doing. They get interrupted by this like nerds. This group of other nerds, which I found hysterical because to me this is like, and I've seen this happen when you have nerds.
These other nerds are worse.
When you have other nerds who are worse nerds than like another group of nerds.
The lone gunmen are cool compared to these guys.
But they're still better. They're still better at being shitlords toward the slightly cooler nerds. It's a thing that I've seen. It is a trope, but it's a thing that I've seen happen.
Oh, in real life, yeah.
So
IRL, basically, these guys come in and they're kind of like the more elitist, like, oh, like, you guys find anything? Did you guys find anything? Oh yeah, we got tons of leads. In fact, we got information that could blah blah blah. And the older one of the group is like, you guys got nothing. And they all kind of look at each other. Yeah, we got nothing. We got nothing too. And they point to Hyper Nerd, the one that's like gatekeeping, the one who's like, I'm a better conspiracy theorist than you guys. He's wearing a shirt that says like government lackey or some.
A patsy, I think.
Government patsy.
Patsy, yeah.
And they even like, point out his shirt. They're like, yeah, you're infiltrating a lot of groups with that shirt. And he's like, hey, man, this shirt's about standing up for something.
Yeah, and the graphic on the shirt, I think, is like a person in a like a sniper, like bullseye, like targeting type thing.
Yeah.
And it says government patsy on it.
Yeah.
Someone about to get sniped. And one of the dudes that he has
foreshadowing.
It is foreshadowing very much. One of the dudes that he has hanging out behind him is I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head, but he ended up going on to play Dr. Phlox in Star Trek Enterprise, which
oh shit, that's how you know him.
Favorite character in that entire series.
Oh shit!
And I rewatched through the first season of Enterprise recently. Also, Enterprise, better Star Trek series than people give it credit for. That show's kind of uneven, but like
just Enterprise, yeah.
Enterprise. If you go back and watch like literally fucking any Star Trek series, and listeners, I am a Star Trek fan. But if you watch any Star Trek series, they're all pretty uneven. Like, uncouple your nostalgia a little bit. Like, they're all pretty uneven shows. Like, the first couple of seasons of Next Generation are trash. Like,
how dare you?
So go back, watch Enterprise. Enterprise, actually, pretty decent show.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, and so
you know who loves Star Trek more than you? All of these characters.
Yeah, probably.
And they'll have things to say about you saying Enterprise is good. So what's the
even exist then?
They decide they decide to like team up somewhat and get like
right, because Byers, like,
he's been banned. The security guards like know what he looks like.
Yeah, and Byers is trying to figure out who the guy is that made him, basically.
Yeah.
And Byers wants to get into his room to figure out like what his deal is, and like the head, like, government patsy, the guy in the government patsy shirt, like the head nerd basically, is like, oh, I could get in that room, no problem. And like the lone gunmen are like, well, we can't. And he's like, oh, well, I can. And they're like, this is important. Like, if you can truly get in there, like, we need to get in there. And he's like, well, okay.
I suppose you need my expertise.
Yeah. And then after that,
and he does help them.
He does help them, but like the way he helps them is like he very, very, very awkwardly like crawls through a vent, like John McClane style.
I love it.
Like he's
to film something that's happening with a hand quarter.
Yeah,
that's happening in some sort of meeting.
Yeah. Like, this dude is not fucking Solid Snake here like he thinks he's
trying to be,
or Sam Fisher. He's trying, but he's not.
And he ends up finding out that his nerd buddy is in the conference, and he's like, what the fuck? So like, imagine you're like, you know, your hacker, your like conspiracy theory friend is in a suit, like at some like government,
right,
like he's got a secret life, and he's like, holy shit. And he backtracks because he think his friend almost sees him, and he's pulled out of the vent by like government goons.
Yeah, and his secret agent buddy, Dr. Phlox, shows up, and
He's like, you just couldn't keep your nose out of this, huh? Well, you'll make a perfect fall man, perfect guinea pig. No, no, man. Oh, I knew I was right. Oh, I knew it. It's brainwashing, bro. And
yeah, and he makes a comment about his shirt too. He's like, oh, it's a pity, and he like taps on his shirt or something like that, and
he's like, what's this? And then he looks down and goes, yeah, and flicks his nose. Gotcha, nerd.
It looks like you were right.
Yeah, looks like you were right. You will be a government patsy after all. And he takes out a syringe gun and shoots him in the neck.
Yeah, shoots him in the neck with something, and then immediately we, if I recall correctly, we cut to him like leaping in front of a bus, getting run over.
Yep. And this is when it starts getting deep. Go ahead.
At some point, actually, at some point just prior to this, we had a bit where the lone gunman called up. Yeah, called up Scully in the middle of the night and faked Mulder's voice using computers, because
way ahead of its time, by the way.
Way ahead of its time. And I was just going to say, this was at a time in movies and TV when most people didn't understand what computers could and couldn't do. So you could basically write computers doing anything. Like, if you go back and watch, like, especially shit in, like, the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, like, the stuff that, like, in movies and TV that writers would write the capabilities of computers were way beyond anything that, like, at times we can even do now. But nowadays we look at it and we're like, what? That's fucking stupid. But back in, like, 1999, people were like, yeah, that's some computer shit right there.
That's like super hacker stuff. Or maybe there were people that knew it was BS.
Well, there were always people who knew it was BS. I'm talking about, like, the masses in general.
Yeah. Well, most people in the
Casual
90s,
audiences.
maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like most people in the 90s didn't have a computer, a personal computer, like a family computer, until the late 90s.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
If that, like early 2000s. Yeah. Like, I feel like early 90s, mid 90s, nobody I knew had a computer. And then like 98, 99 is when all my friends suddenly started having computers.
Yeah. And let me tell you,
one kid in your class who could like burn CDs was the hottest shit ever.
I was that kid.
Nice.
Charging people $10 per CD.
You're goddamn right.
The thing that I did from, like, probably like 99 to 2003 was I burned CDs for people for like $10 a pop.
Someone's got to. So they fake Agent Mulder's voice, and it's like, just come, and you can kind of tell it's not him, but she's in the middle of the night, she was sleeping, she's like, huh, what? And it's just like, oh, just come here, Scully, we have to talk in person, it's easier to explain, I don't want to talk over phone. And she's like, okay. And so she drops everything and goes to, oh, and they bring up, well, what if she calls him back? And he's like, impossible. I rerouted her local blah, blah, blah. So that if she calls his number, it will call us. And I'm like, wow.
Covering all the bases.
Yeah. So she gets there and she kind of arrives right when the guy gets hit, doesn't she?
She does.
She's kind of like out of the way, government agent, and like checks his pulse. And they pull her away and she's like, what's going on here? And it's like, oh, we got a lot to talk about. And she humors them and she's like, but where's Mulder? And it's like, oh, he's coming. Oh, don't worry, he's there. He's here.
He's really busy though.
He's busy doing FBI stuff. So what's going on here? They fill her in on the plan. They let her know what's going on. They're like, brainwashing, man. He'd never kill himself.
Right. And so Garth Hacker and her like go to perform an autopsy on the body, and she's like,
Yeah, out of all people, the hacker's like, I want to be there too, man. What did he lend to this scene? Just to give her someone to bounce off of during that scene, I guess.
Basically to be a joke in that
Yeah. Oh, right. The joke is that he can't.
he was someone to be there to get sick because he can't handle it,
He can't handle
and then
blood.
run out of the room, and so he leaves her alone so she can be ambushed by Dr. Phlox and injected herself. And then we get like fucking party time Scully.
She wakes up and she's like, oh, well, that's that. And he's like, what do you mean that's that? She's like, nothing. Cause of death is getting hit by a bus. Cutie. And
I think she's like
ditzy.
she's I think she's like, cause of death is like, and then she like smacks her hands together.
Yeah. And it's another TV trope to be all like, huh, that's weird. Dana Scully's acting a little weird. Oh well. Not only is she acting weird, she's never acted like this ever, even once. And you'd think Garth Hacker would pick that up.
To be fair, they probably don't hang out with her on the regular.
Oh, it's different as a viewer.
Yeah.
Who sees her every
like
episode,
if Mulder saw her acting like that, he would be like, "Oh God, Dana, what's wrong with you?"
He'd be like, "Somebody drugged her."
Yeah.
And indeed, it's like somebody slipped her a Mickey or something like that, because she's super flirty and ditzy. And
we get a scene. We get a scene where she is like at a bar with like a
part
cigarette.
Of the casino.
Yeah, in the casino. So she has like a cigarette, or someone gives her a cigarette, and she's like being like really like fun flirty and flirty toward everyone, and jokes. She just has like a group of like middle-aged men like just surrounding her,
laughing at all of her jokes.
One of them being the guy who would later go on to play Howard in Better Call Saul, Jimmy Saul weird. Goodman, Jimmy's random. Older brother.
There's a lot of crossover between Breaking Bad.
Well, not super random, because I mean this episode was written by Vince Gilligan.
Fair.
So
yeah. And my favorite part of this whole like ditzy, she's flirting with everyone's laughing at her. She's like, oh, does anyone have a light? And like 15 dudes immediately pull out their lighters.
Oh. And when I watched that, I messaged Cal immediately, and I was like, lol, this smoking scene is a gangbang waiting to happen. It's just...
And she's all like, man, okay, so in real life, right, I feel really bad for Agent Scully, and it's just like, oh, thank God the older dude of the lone gunman like is like, she's government agent Dana Scully, get back, you scavengers, you can be arrested just for talking to her, come on, get out of here. And he actually saves her and brings her back to the group.
Good on him.
But knowing that this is a episode and they're all acting, ditzy Scully.
Okay, so IRL, this kind of scenario, like, definitely don't take advantage of a woman in that kind of state. But as a bit that is intended to be comedic on television, like, this is fun.
It's fun, yeah.
And nothing
also,
bad.
Kudos to the actress. Forgot how she's got some acting chops.
Right.
Because she's never plays this kind of character on the show. So for her to be like flirty and like giggly, literally the opposite of her like character, and this like dumb ditzy like lady, it was fun. Yep, but she's saved, and
so Byers ends up running into Susan. What was her name? Susan
Medeski.
Susan
Medeski. Yeah.
So he ends up like spotting her, and he tracks her down, finds out that she is staying in the same room with the dude that made him at the poker game.
Mm-hmm.
And
is convinced that she's brainwashed.
Is convinced that she's been brainwashed. So he actually like confronts her, and she's like, "No, I'm not brainwashed, not at all. This man is my fiance. We're gonna get married." And he's like, "No, how could you? Like, I saw you get kidnapped 10 years ago. Like," and she's like, "Well, I did get kidnapped, but
what's happened since then?"
Lots happened since then. It's been 10 years. We've all grown as people. Sometimes things just don't work out.
And it turns out he saved her from whatever bullshit was happening to her.
Right.
Her fiance.
Right.
He's the man on the inside, but he also pulled her or saved her from whatever stuff was happening to her. So he's a good guy, But Byers doesn't believe it, and then some Mission Impossible shenanigans come about. This time, instead of crawling through vents, we get homeboy's name, Langley, right? Sorry, no, the older guy, Freud.
Well, when I made the joke earlier about Langley is where FBI headquarters is. Langley is a city. Yeah. I got you now. You now. Yeah. So earlier when you mentioned about like FBI guy, I was like Langley.
Oh, that's what you meant. Yeah. So Freud is kind of like,
I only know that because I've watched so many like espionage shows over the past like 20 years.
Yeah. So, what happens here? He's dressed like I don't know where this guy gets all of his like costumes, but he's dressed like a maintenance guy, and he's gonna go use like a card duper, like frequency kind of like magnetic doohickey thing to get in. But there's like a housekeeper who beats him to it. I don't know why that scene is included. Maybe to cut back and forth between different scenes, but eventually housekeeping leaves and he lets himself into the room later with his like hacking magnetic device. And we get a weird scene where he creeps on her.
I ended up accidentally just freeze framing on the shot of Scully with this like stone Scully with the cigarette hanging out of her mouth with like the dudes with the lit
that's a good
in front of her face. One. I think I'm gonna make that the episode art.
Lol. Yeah, where was that? What's the timestamp for that?
What was that? That was.
Oh, there we go. About 31 minutes inwards, 31:05 or something.
Around like 31:27. On Disney Plus. On the correct episode.
Yeah, what does she say? I can't decide who lights my fire. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I just can't decide who lights my fire.
So what ends up happening is
she's kind of playing honestly, like she's been drugged. One thing I will say as someone who has partaken in a number of mind-altering substances in their day, including alcohol and drugs. She's playing this more really drunk than being someone who's been drugged.
Yeah.
She's playing this drunk. Like
she's
really,
playing
really
like a drunk ditzy chick.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening is there's a scene where Freud is spying on Medeski as she's like getting changed. And he's like, ooh, pretty lady. And he kind of spies on her a little bit. And then when he's making his exit, he must escape via a vent. There's a lot of spy shenanigans and something to do with crawling through vents. But he finds somebody else's cam device in there.
Right.
So someone else from earlier has been spying on them. We cut to Byers and Medeski finally talk in private. And that's when Freud, all the scenes come together now, and Susan Medeski is with the lone gunman, and Scully's there, so they're all in one hotel room now.
Yeah,
And immediately,
and Medeski figures out what's going on with Scully, and she's able to like come up with like an antidote, and
comes up
she
with
gives
an
it to her.
antidote. Yeah, and the reason she has an antidote is because her and her fiance worked on this brainwashing shenanigans, right? And they should be the only ones with it,
right?
Because they're the only ones with the antidote, and they're the only ones with like the serum.
Yeah, and she explains that it's a drug that opens people up to like extreme suggestions. So, and then the rest of the lone gunmen put it together that, super nerd from earlier, like, injected with it, he could be told to just throw himself in front of a bus.
Yeah, and if you're not like given orders, you're just kind of in like this passive like state.
Right.
So you either get you're just kind of giggly. It's like laughing gas. I think they mentioned it's similar to. You're just kind of like not there.
Yeah.
How does Garth Hacker get grabbed again? Because he gets grabbed by the bad guys, right?
I don't remember. I watched this 2 days ago.
Oh, gotcha. This is my favorite part. Right. Okay. So because the guy's dead, his fellow like nerd friend, who we know is a bad guy, right? He's like, hey guys, because they're just kind of like sad playing slot machines, trying to figure out what to do. We're jumping all over the episode, but whatever.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. They're like, hey, we're gonna have a Dungeons and Dragons like memorial game. You guys gonna
be
there?
Yeah, right.
And Garth Hacker is like, I can't remember his character's name, but he's like, is like Kronar, like the brave. Kronar the brave shall honor his name. I'm gonna be there. And then Afroik is like, yeah, have fun with that, kids.
So immediately when I saw this the other day, I'm wondering, and I say this as someone who is not a D&D player, but like I know enough about it to understand what it's all about.
Yeah.
To me, I'm like, can you just randomly jump into a D&D game like that?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's never been my experience with D&D.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, some people have their character sheets with them. You can de-level them to match a party if you're really dedicated to one character. It could be that they have pre-made characters up there.
Yeah. All right.
But it depends on how good you are at improvising or preparing. I could improvise a D&D game at any given time. Could literally just give out characters, tell them their backstories, tell them their classes. Well, so if I can do it, these nerds can.
Well, apparently, nerds can do it. Apparently, I don't know what I'm talking about then.
Yeah, and in fact, I run a game and am part of a game. I mostly just improvise everything. That's my superpower. ADD. No preparation, just improvise everything. You'll be fine.
Like this podcast.
Exactly. See?
And every other podcast we do.
That's right. But it turns out I don't get to see Garth Hacker participate in the joys of Dungeons and Dragons, Memorial Dungeons and Dragons game. There are government goons in there, and they grab him. And he's like, oh, man. And wouldn't you know it, they inject him with something and reprogram him. And then suddenly, I thought he cut his hair for the episode. He just has it tied back in a ponytail.
Right.
But like,
we cut to this like not board meeting, but like
conference.
Conference. Yeah. So a bunch of people sitting in a crowd in a like boardroom in the casino. Medeski. Is that her name?
Medeski, yeah.
Medeski, yeah.
Susan Medeski.
Susan Medeski and her beau, her fiance, are like up on. All right, yeah, they're up on stage there, and Scully is trying to get in, and like there's this big like security guard dude being like, "Oh, you're not on the list," basically, and she's
He's
like,
like, but I'm FBI.
but I'm FBI,"
And
and
he's
he's like, "Well, you're not on the list."
tough shit, lady. She's like, but I'm a doctor. And he's like he's
Right.
not letting her in.
Yeah, playing the world's smallest violin.
I
Um,
I kind of dig brainwashed I kind of dig brainwashed
Garth
Langley.
Hacker.
Yeah.
So Garth Hacker is in there, and he like stands up, pulls out a gun, and fires off some rounds, and seemingly fucking kills Modeski.
Like boom, 3 shots. And there's a shot where it shows him being like given his orders.
Right.
This is very I forgot how X-Files was like absolutely shameless about being like government conspiracies, brainwash, corporations. Like it's deep in it. And basically, yeah, we get to watch him walk out, pull out a gun, 1, 2, 3, blast her 3 times and walk away.
On that note, so when I watched these episodes the other day, this one and unintentionally the baseball episode,
Yeah.
which I'm gonna say I liked it more than this one, but this episode was fine.
This
but
is
I liked
really like the Lone Gunman.
Yeah.
So this is a fun one, but
the intro to the show, the boom 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 boom, with like the like static shots of like low res like UFO footage and whatnot, and like a silhouette of like a person like falling down. It and it's just because like it's a thing that like conspiracy theorists on YouTube videos like QAnon type shit, like they use this kind of imagery now.
They do.
So when I was like going back to this, like watching it like 20 plus years later, I'm like, all it is, like all it's making me think of is like fucking like QAnon videos, or like 9/11.
I haven't seen any.
Or like 9/11 truther videos. That kind of shit, you know?
I watched the cool conspiracy stuff. I watched stuff like, you know, like ancient Sumerian, like alien blooded like rulers and the occult like practices of the Nazis and magic and mysticism and just stupid shit like that. I don't like watch like fanatical, like, you know, QAnon like stuff. I've watched like one dude's like flat earth like video, but his like science was kind of not there.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you could say that about all of those sorts of videos, in my opinion. Yes.
Yeah, but
anyway, so Scully barges in.
What's the anyways? Oh, she barges in and she's like, I'm a doctor.
She barges in and is like, I'm a doctor, damn it. Someone is like, is there a doctor in the house? And she's like, I'm a doctor. Barges in, and
because of the gunshots, the security guard and Scully both run into the room, right?
Yeah. And
so they she's like the body out really quickly.
Yeah, she's like, she's dead. All right, well, let's get this trash out of here. Throw in their compactor, you know, throw in the compost.
And I think it's like Freuk and Byers are like the med crew that like
they are,
and like take her out. And I'm like, wait
a second. They're the EMTs, but they come in looking like fucking janitors, like straight up. Like they don't even look like EMTs. They look like
misdirection. Yeah.
They look like well, no, and it's not even that. It's just like when they come in, like with the stretcher and everything, they don't look like EMTs.
They look more like Ghostbusters. Yeah.
Yeah, they look like Ghostbusters or like janitors or custodians.
That's their kind
of sort.
Professional looking, like generic like disguise. They didn't have EMT disguises on them, but they had like, you know, generic professional disguise. Right. It's kind of like how you can get in almost anywhere if you have a Visi vest.
Right.
If you wear a Visi vest and act like you belong, you can get anywhere.
The power of confidence, my friend.
And indeed, they wheel her away, and it's revealed that Susan Medeski was not shot.
Yep, she
It was
wasn't shot.
all a setup.
They bring her fiance in, and
She confronts him.
She confronts him. She's like, "Let me talk to him." And Byers and the other lone gunmen are like, "Wait, do you need us here?" And she's like, "No, I'll be fine. Give us the room." And so they
I'll
fuck
be fine.
Off. I'll be fine. So they fuck off, and she's like, "I knew, bro. I knew it was you, Fredo. I knew it was you."
And
you
like,
broke my heart,
Fredo.
You broke my heart. And then she grabs him.
You're tearing me apart.
And then she grabs him and like kisses either cheek and is like, let's go on a fishing trip out on the lake, just me and you.
Fuck.
But she's like, I know it was you who was trying to kill me, so why would you do that? And he's like, well, I had no choice. It's what they wanted. They wanted you dead. And she's like, but you saved me, so why now? And he's like, because now they're gonna kill me, bitch. So what do you want from me?
She's like, well, I see how it is. Because they had planned on going public with the info, and I guess they had caught wind and were like, hey, give us all of the and the reason she was suspicious of him and this whole setup even happened was because only her and her fiance had the intel of how to make the serum. So how did someone else get it? Well, if you didn't tell and only one other person knows, then it had to be her fiance.
I'm kind of wondering what kind of like super chemists they are, though, to make this serum.
Like work for like Umbrella Corp kind of levels of scientist. Right. And what happens? Fake nerd, government dude.
Yeah, Dr. Phlox.
He's there. He just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And he
shows up.
Hey, fuck you guys. And he shoots fiance dude.
Yeah, and he's gonna shoot Susan
Medeski.
Susan. Right. I don't know why I keep fucking her name up, but he's gonna shoot her, and then what happens? Who barges in? Is it Scully? Scully barges in.
He takes her.
Oh, right. Okay, so
right, he's taking her hostage.
He takes her hostage, and then he goes into the lone gunman's hotel room. Right. Okay.
To take everyone out, clean house. If we're gonna use poker symbolism here.
Yeah. So some shit goes down. He
pistol whips Byers. He's gonna shoot them all because Byers rushes him. He's like, no, not Susan. I've been saving my V card. He used to have a life before all of this, but I've been saving myself for her. And
I was gonna, out of all of them, Byers is the one who doesn't have the V card.
Doesn't have the B card?
The V card.
The V card. What about the other two? That the older guy looks like he fucked in the 70s. Right? So what happens?
Probably doing a lot of acid.
Definitely. That's how you free your mind, man.
Yeah, okay, so Dr. Phlox is like holding a gun to them, and he mentions he's like something akin to like, the best reason for killing you is I don't have to pretend like I'm one of you anymore. Right. So he just hated playing like a fucking like awkward nerd.
This double agent pretending to be like a conspiracy anti-government like nerd. Yeah.
But then he gets
Byers is on the ground and he stabs him in the leg with the.
He stabs him with like the vial of this like super truth serum.
The syringe gun. Yeah. The brainwashing serum.
Yeah, the brainwashing serum.
And even if you're stabbed in the leg, apparently it immediately hits you.
That was something that I thought about when I was watching this the other day. I'm like, okay, so motherfuckers, I've played Metal Gear Solid 2. I know that when you shoot a guard in the head with a tranq dart, they pass out immediately. When you shoot them in the ankle, it takes a good minute or so before they pass out. And so I'm using that as my basis for how shit actually works in the real world. So I'm just saying, this guy shouldn't have gone down that fast, but he did. So here we are.
Here we are. Yeah. I actually brought up some medical studies and stuff like that to track how fast it goes through your, even if he hit a direct artery, which by the way, he didn't, he just pierced the surface of his leg.
Right.
The reason
he got him in the ankle.
Yeah. The reason they aim for the jugular or the carotid is because it goes directly to your heart and then to your brain.
Yeah, it goes to the brain faster.
Yeah. And I think it's been on the jugular up till now. It made more sense if it was on the carotid artery, but whatever. But basically in the neck, hits your head faster. But no,
right.
Ankle's just fine, bro. So this stuff is potent. More potent than the T virus. So what happens here? They do something seedy. Correct me if I'm wrong. When he's brainwashed, they program him to confess to the murders. The fake dead people. One, Medeski's fiance, and two, shooting Medeski. So they pin it all on this guy by brainwashing him. He's arrested and he's on record for admitting fault.
Right.
Confessing. There we go. And it's in the newspaper and everything. So not only did they save the day and they stop the bad guy, Susan Medeski gets a new lease on life because her death is faked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a bit of an epilogue here where Byers is telling Medeski this, and he's like, yeah, Susan Medeski is dead, like, you're now blah blah, you're free. And she's like, come with me.
Kudos to the actor, because when she's like, hey, come with me, he's basically like, what? I love that, but I got to take these motherfuckers down. I can't just run my whole life. And you know what? A lesser man would have just taken the pussy and ran, dude. So kudos to you. He's like, you know what? Maybe some, and what does she say? It's not word for word, but she's basically like, oh, I'll be waiting for you. No. Don't make him wait. You're not going to be waiting for him. Don't pretend you're going to get remarried. Don't tell him that. Don't secure his celibacy for the next 10 years.
You didn't wait last time, bitch.
Yeah. Kiss him on the cheek and be like, you know what? Slay as much pussy as possible. If we ever meet up again, like, we'll see where we're at in life and maybe things will happen. I wish you the best of luck. No, she's like, wait for me, Byers. I'll be waiting for you. No,
like last time, like 10 years ago, she was like she got kidnapped, but then she ended up like shacking up the dude who like kidnapped her.
Presumably he's been celibate this whole time.
And she was like telling him like, oh, she told Byers like, oh, I wish it was you who had taken me away. But it's like,
you so it's like, don't lead this guy on for another 10 years, 20 years. This guy isn't getting his dick sucked. But she does that again. She's like, wait for me, Byers. I'll be in the countryside in our favorite cottage. I won't give myself to any other man. Hurry home, dear.
In that cottage.
In that just in that cottage.
Just in that cottage.
And I'm like, oh, don't tell him that. Now
Right.
bro's gonna be celibate another 10 years. And he's gonna find you again and he'll be like, I did it. I took down the government, and you're gonna have like 3 kids. Twice divorced. Like, don't do that
Like,
to my man here.
oh, this is awkward. Uh yeah, so I kind of got this family thing going on. Like I'm a single mom, but you know, I got two ex-husbands and they kind of take care of me. And oh, this is Roger right here. He's the he's the pool boy. You don't have a pool. Well, he's someone's pool boy. But we definitely go for a splash when we're together, if you know what I'm saying.
So if you're ready to walk into that, yeah,
Splish splash. He was taking a bath.
this guy's got to move on.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, bro.
I think the final bit of the episode was Scully like calling up Mulder and being like, "Hey, where the fuck are you?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Well, you called me to Vegas." And he's like, "No, I didn't." And
she's like, those nerds.
in a that's actually a very like sitcom way to end the episode.
Cue laugh track, hands on the side of the hips, like a I Love Lucy skit.
Or she just like throws her arms up in the air and makes like an exaggerated expression and it freeze frames and is like executive producers blah blah.
Seinfeld episode, boo ba doo boo boo doo ba doo doo boo boo. And I'm fine with that ending.
Yeah,
I dig it.
It's just to me it's surprisingly sitcom-y for this show.
Mulder's like, but I'm not in Vegas. Boo ba doo boo boo.
Donovan.
And that's it, folks.
Anyway, yeah, that was
this is fun. I forgot that the episodes were so long.
I forgot they were so long. Years. And I forgot that some of the episodes of the show were actually pretty lighthearted. Like heavy, but also lighthearted at times.
Yeah, like this is heavy, but there's still nerd antics and there's still like sitcom things, like the freaking like 15 dudes pulling their lighters out like at the ready.
Right.
Yeah. And the ending, yeah. The Mission Impossible schemes that these guys get up to, it was a joy.
Yeah, it was a joy. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Also, what was not as much fun, but was genuinely really good, was the episode that follows this, the baseball episode. I think called The Unnatural is the name of the episode. Really, really good episode. I highly recommend that. I enjoyed it more than this, but the tone of the two episodes is quite different.
Yeah, it's the tone. This is like Mission Impossible.
That episode is much more sentimental and heartfelt, and actually cried at one point in that episode. Actually teared up.
Check it out.
So, highly recommended. So that was episode 137 of the X-Files, 3 of a kind. Big thank you to Lewis for pitching that show to us. As I mentioned, this is Patreon month, so we'll be back next week with another Patreon sponsored episode. And what do we have coming up next? We have our a show pitched to us from our $25 patron, Kay. Big, huge even with a Y. Shout out to her. She pitched us. Well, originally she pitched us Murdoch Mysteries, and then it occurred to me...
We were both kind of stoked for that.
I was kind of stoked for that, but then it occurred to me very recently that, oh wait, Murdoch Mysteries is still going, so it doesn't count. So I reached out to her and was like, hey, we really wanted to talk about Murdoch Mysteries, but Murdoch Mysteries is still going, so it doesn't really fit the bill. So do you have another suggestion? She's like, oh, what about Ruby Gloom? Show I'd never heard of.
I think I've seen fan art before I've heard of the show. Because I'm like, these characters seem familiar, but how?
But how?
But how?
But why?
But why?
So here we go. Ruby Gloom is a Canadian animated television series based on the Mighty Fine apparel line of the same name, created by illustrator Martin Sue. That is a new one for me. We have reviewed a number of shows on this and various other podcasts that we do based on toys. I have never heard of a show based on a clothing line before.
Right?
So I'm kind of interested. So Ruby Gloom lasted for a total of 40 episodes. So we're going to go to our favorite website, numbergenerator.org. I really got to reach out to them and ask them for some kind of sponsorship or something. I'm like, we're bringing you all the views.
They'll reply to you in Mandarin. Telling you to F off.
Mandarin or like
Russian.
Or like some Middle Eastern language,
like Hindi or
something like that.
Arabic.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so we're at numbergenerator.org. Random numbers between 1 and 40. Here we go. Start. 36. What was episode 36? That was season 3, the final season. Episode 10, Frank and Len Unplugged. All right. I have confirmed that this show is available to stream on something. I can't remember what it is, but it is available.
It's somewhere.
It's somewhere. God damn it. So we'll be back next week with that. If you want to get in on sponsoring a show for this podcast, go to Patreon, patreon.com/Lazorcomb, LAZORCOMB. We're at the $10 and up tier. You can do just that. Starting at the $5 and up tier, however, you also get hours each and every week of a bonus preamble audio where we kind of just shoot the shit and talk. And it's kind of before we start recording the episodes proper, it's kind of a peek behind the curtain, so to speak.
Darkest secrets
of what we get up to before we actually put on our game faces, so to speak. You also get a monthly commentary track, Too Much Commentary, which hopefully we're going to be recording a new episode soon. Sometimes life gets in the way, though, so
and it's been the holidays, and
soon though, hopefully.
Soon.
I'm really hoping for RoboCop or Highlander.
I'm fine with either of those.
It's my birthday month, January, so
you get to choose.
And RoboCop is my favorite movie of all time, so
RoboCop it is.
Probably going to go with that. So keep an eye out for that. Patreon.com/Lazorcomb. Social media, Facebook.com/Lazorcomb. Once again, LAZORCOMB. It's kind of the central hub for this and all of the other various shows that we do. Follow me on Twitter. I am at Lazorcomb. Not going to spell it for a third time because you've already heard it twice. Cal, you are also on Twitter. Yes?
Indeed. NeoCal. NEO_KAL.
As I mentioned, we will be back next week with episode 19 of the Lazorcomb podcast, where we will be talking about the 36th episode overall of Ruby Gloom. And until then, I've been one of your hosts, Christopher Siege.
And I'm NeoCal.
And until next week, thanks for listening. We'll catch you later.
Bye.